everyone, welcome back to my channel for another weekly video. For today's video, we are going to be reading books by authors I've already read before. These authors are either ones that I really love the books that I've read by them, or authors where I might have read only one book, but I am interested in seeing how their other books are. So there are 32 authors that we will be choosing from, and they range the pretty much the whole genre spectrum. We have science fiction, fantasy, historical fiction, romance, mystery thrillers, contemporary fiction, and pretty much everything in between. Now, how we are going to choose the authors? Well, this is going to be pretty familiar for those who have watched my channel before. In this little bag here, we have our origami packages. And inside each package, there are 32 of them. I just happened to pull the 32nd package. Numbers mean nothing in this game. Inside each package is a author's name. And whatever author we choose, we'll pull up a spin wheel that will have all the books I haven't read by that author on it. If it's an author that writes a lot of series, it will just have the next book in that series. Because obviously I'm not going to put every single book in the series because otherwise, I may be, reading the fifth book of the series without having read 1 through 4. So that is how this is going to work. And then we'll read the books, review them, and see if I still enjoy the author. So pretty simple concept, but I'm super excited. I'm also a little bit nervous about this because when I was pulling together all the books by the authors, a lot of them have very long books that are in the 500, 600, 700 range. And if I hit several of those, this could make for a very long reading vlog. All right, so let's get started and hope that we don't get all 700-page books. We're probably going to read about 3 for this video. All right, so let's go ahead and choose our first book. Here we go. So many to choose from. Let's go with one that is right here that I am grabbing onto, and it's a pink one. It's package number 23. Again, colors and numbers don't mean anything in this game. All right, let's go ahead and open it and see what we get. What author will we be reading from first? All right, here we go. Unfold this. And the author, oops, dropped it. It's right here. Author we'll be reading from is Abigail Owen. Oh, I'm so excited. So this is the author of The Games Gods Play, which I read in a previous video and I absolutely loved, and I am so excited to read another book by her. So she writes mostly fantasy and paranormal romances, which I cannot wait for. And the other perk on this is that one of her books is on my TBR, so there is a chance that I will be able to read a book off of my TBR, and that is The Lion's Crown. So let's go ahead and bring up the spinning wheel that's going to have the book choices that we can read from, and let's see what book we'll be reading first. All right, so I went ahead and quickly made the wheel. I didn't pre-make any of these wheels because that would be 32 wheels, and that's a little bit time consuming. But I just made Abigail Owen's spinning wheel, and it's going to be green because that's what the program gave me, and that is what we are going to go with. So she writes a lot of series, so there are only 6 books that are actually on the spinning wheel. It does repeat some of them just to make the wheel look more full. And let's go ahead and spin it and see what book we are going to be reading. Remember, The Lion's Crown is the one that's on my TBR, so that's the one I'm hoping for the most. But that's 1 out of a 6 chance, and with my luck in these types of games, probably not going to happen. All right, here we go, hitting spin. Oh, oh my gosh, we were so close to the Lion's Crown. I really thought we were going to get it, but that's okay. We got Blue Violet, which I think is one of the first books that she wrote. So this is the first book in the first series that she wrote. It was written back in 2012, and it's part of the series called, I'm not going to be able to pronounce this, it's Subtura? And it's a paranormal romance series and not super long. It's only 229 pages, so we did not get a, 700-page book, so that is good for us. The 2 main characters are Ellie and Alex. So Ellie has had a unnaturally long life hiding her extraordinary abilities from the world. She's been on the run from a pack of wolf shifters who murdered her family, and now she is secretly watching over another group of people who are similarly gifted, and she is determined that they will not suffer the same fate as her family. Now, Alex has come home to protect his family from an unknown danger lurking in the woods. He is suspicious of the new girl in town, which is Ellie, and he challenges her in ways that will spark one of two possible outcomes. They'll either spontaneously combust, or she'll lose control over the one power she's fought so hard to contain. And then it says, in this fairy tale, the dragon the prince must slay is also the princess who holds her heart. So that is our first book. I am excited about this one. Like I said, I really enjoy The Games Gods Play, though that was a more recent book published by her, and this looks like what is her very first book published. So I'm interested to see how the writing is when she first started publishing books. The plot itself seems like this is going to be kind of like an enemies to lovers romance, which is probably one of my favorite romance tropes that is out there. So I'm excited to see how I enjoy this one. So since it is such a short book, I'll probably check in with you when I'm halfway through and let you know how it is going. So I'll see you guys back here at the fireplace in a little bit. So I'll see you guys soon. All right, change of plans. I cannot find the book Blue Violet on ebook. I can't find any paperback copies either at the moment. So we're going to have to spin the wheel again. This may happen when, we're trying to read authors' backlist that the book may no longer be published or available. So if that happens, what I'll do is I'll just spin the wheel again. And then in the meantime, I will try to find that book, in a used bookstore or something so that in the future, if we get that book again, we'll at least have a paperback or hardback copy of it. So that will be the plan. So let's go ahead, bring up Abigail Owen's spinning wheel once again and see what we will hopefully actually be reading this time around. All right, second chance, second spin. See if we can get the liar's crown this time around. All right, here we go. Or not. There we go. Oh, stop, stop, stop. All right, I did not plan this. I truly could not find the blue violet, and somehow we ended up on the liar's crown. I am so happy for several reasons. I've really wanted to read this book. And also it's on my TBR, so I'm also going to be checking off a TBR book in this game, which I honestly did not think was going to happen. All right, here is The Lion's Crown by Abigail Owen. This is a more recent series of her. This book was published back in 2022. It's the first book in her series called Dominions. And so far, it's a trilogy. I don't know if more books are planning on coming out or if it's just going to be a trilogy, but there are 3 books out in this series so far. So this is a fantasy book that follows twins who are princesses, and the elder twin is in line to the throne once the queen dies. The second twin, the younger twin, her only meaning of life basically is to sacrifice herself if danger comes for her sister. So recently the queen has died and the elder twin is in line on the throne, and a king has sent that elder twin a gift, which is a eerily familiar gift, and that is a proposal to wed. The younger twin does not trust this, and when a figure made of a shadow attempts to kidnap the new queen, he gets the younger twin by mistake. And as that younger twin tries to escape, all the lies kind of start to unravel, and the shadow wraith who took her has secrets of his own. So the only way to save her sister and their dominion is to kill the king Eidolon, who is to wed the elder twin sister, and also she has to kill the shadow wraith who has stolen her heart. So a little romantasy, a little enemies to lovers. Like I said before, I love enemies to lovers. I am excited to read this book. It's obviously a little bit longer than 229 pages. It's just over 400 pages. This will take me a little bit longer to read, but that's okay because it is on my TBR, and I am happy to be knocking a book off of my TBR in this game, like I said before. So let's go learn about how the one twin has to sacrifice her life for her older sister. And I'll meet you back here at page 200-ish and let you know what I'm thinking. So I'll see you guys back here at the fireplace in a little bit. All right, I am back and I'm about halfway through The Liar's Crown. I'm on page 200 out of like 230, not 200, 430 some pages. So just under halfway through. So far there's been some good parts of this book, some not so good parts of the book, but for for the most part, I've been enjoying reading this. It's definitely different than Games Gods Play, which was based on kind of Greek mythology and set in the United States and kind of around the world. This book is set in this fantasy world that's composed of these, I think, 6 dominions. And the dominions kind of have fun names. They're named after different types of land. So you have Tundra, you have Wilderness, Savannah, Tropicus, and the place where the twins live that we are kind of following in this book is called Arid, and it's kind of like in the desert. And the author even has a map of the lands, which is nice. I always like maps to kind of know where I am when I'm reading the book. So this book is told from the viewpoint of the second twin, whose name is Marineth, who goes by Marin for short. And the book kind of starts off when she's living with her great aunt while her twin sister is being raised in the palace because she's the one that is going to inherit the throne, and no one can know that she has a identical twin that can be there to keep the twin that is inheriting the throne safe. So Marin has known that her duty is to be put in the dangerous positions where her older twin sister may end up being killed, murdered, hurt, kidnapped, things like that. So she's kind of the sacrificial lamb in this scenario. And lo and behold, when the queen dies, who's their grandmother, Tabra has to become coronated, has to go through the coronation, and Marin has to be in the palace because she's going to get swapped out if there's any concern for danger. And of course that happens because otherwise, the book wouldn't be that exciting if nothing happened. And Marin ends up getting kidnapped by a shadow wraith. So she did her duty, she protected her twin sister, but now she's kidnapped. The twins actually are very close, and the older twin does not like that Marin has to put herself into danger to protect the older twin. The older twin's not happy about that, but that is how things have been done for generations upon generations in this royal family. The world building in this book is kind of hit or miss. I feel like we know a lot about the twins' family, about the world, the kingdom, the dominion that they lived in, known as Arid. And we know about the magic that the royal family, the royal twins, kind of hold. In each set of twins, one twin has a magic called Infernae, which kind of lets them manipulate other people's thoughts. And the other twin has a magic called, I can never remember the second magic, Hylornae. And for Marin, who's inherited the Hylornae type of magic, she can kind of manipulate sand, she can make it into glass, and that's her magical power, which becomes important later on in the story. So for the rest of the world, there's not a lot of discussion about the types of magic that they hold. There's at least one king in one of the dominions who also has the power of Infernae, but that's really all you know about the other kingdoms. There's not a lot of discussion around that. There's not a lot of world building outside of Arid, the Arid Dominion, and outside of the royal family. At least at this point, you get some little hints here and there. You know a little bit more about one of the dominions where what's his name? King Eidolon lives, because he has proposed to the elder twin. So you do get to know a little bit about that because he is a kind of bad guy. And the author does kind of talk about that for a little bit. One of the other things I kind of questioned when I was reading the first half of this book is when the main character gets kidnapped. She happens to be wearing a dress that is made out of tiny glass beads, and she starts dropping them behind her, kind of like a trail. I'm curious if that would really work, because I feel like, when you are doing like crafts or something like that and you drop a bead, especially a clear one like glass would be, there's no way that you're going to be able to find it. It takes forever to track down that glass bead. And when someone's dropping them behind their dress out, in the wilderness, out in the sand, are you really going to be able to follow that trail? I just don't think that that would happen. At least from my experience, I feel like that is not accurate. I don't see how you would be able to find a clear glass bead out in the world. But who knows? That was an interesting part of the story. But overall, I do find myself engaged in this book and wanting to see what's happened next. It's been a pretty easy read, and I'm overall definitely enjoying it. I've enjoyed kind of the twists and turns that have happened so far. There's been a lot for the first half of the book, I feel, and I can't wait to see what the author's going to throw in for the second half of the book. So, while this book is not quite as much fun as the games Gods Play, that's definitely still number one for me by this author. I'm definitely enjoying it, and I'm very happy that this book came up for this reading game as well. So I'll meet you back here when I have finished the book, and I'll give you kind of my final thoughts on it. And hopefully it's going to have a good ending. It is the first book in the trilogy. I just hope it doesn't have one of those endings where it's like a big cliffhanger. For some reason, I just don't like those. So I'll meet you back here in a little bit, and we'll finish reviewing this book, and then we'll go ahead and choose our second one as well. So I'll see you guys soon. It is about midnight, and I finally finished The Liar's Crown by Abigail Owen. Overall, I really enjoyed this story. I give it about a 4 out of 5. It's not as good as the games God's Play was. That's definitely my favorite book by her, but it's definitely a good, I wouldn't say fun, but a entertaining romantasy, kind of like an older YA slash NA romantasy book. Thankfully, the ending wasn't one of those cheesy cliffhangers that something happens in like the last page that makes you want to continue on to the next book. The ending of this makes sense with the story, and it does make you want to go on to read the next book just to kind of see what happens from where this book ended. But it wasn't like a ending that came out of nowhere, which is the ones that I don't like. Those ones that kind of come out of nowhere are very cheesy, like something all of a sudden gets revealed right at the end that you had no clue was coming, that makes you want to pick up the next book. The ending with this one went along with the story, which I am good with. Like I said before, this entire book is told from that second born twin, Marin, and it's the only viewpoint that you get throughout this story. There were parts that I kind of wish that we got to see what was going on with the other twin, because I think that would have been a interesting aspect to see in the book. I kind of understand why the author went with just the one point of view, but I do think it would have been kind of interesting to see what happened with that second twin and what was happening in her life while this one ended up kidnapped. I did like the two main characters though, Marin and her kidnapper Revan. And I liked how their relationship kind of grew throughout the book. It seemed natural. It wasn't anything that was rushed. And I liked how both characters kind of grew throughout the story as well as different things happened to them and as they found out different things about each other. I liked how the author kind of incorporated that into how both their characters grew and the relationship between each other grew. So yeah, so overall I did enjoy this book. The plot and the action in this book was also pretty well paced. There were a couple sections that did seem to slow down, but most of them are right in that middle section. And the beginning and the ending, there's, things happening that kept you reading. There's just a couple of parts in the middle that felt a little bit slow to me, but everything else kept me interested and kept me engaged in the story, which was nice as well. So that is The Lion's Crown by Abigail Owen. Again, the first book in her Dominion series. And I'm looking forward to picking up the next two books at some point. So that is it for our first book. It is time to go ahead and choose the author of our second book. And I cannot wait to see who the author will be. I still can't believe I got The Lion's Crown for the first book, since it's the only book that is on my TBR that was a potential to be chosen in this game. And out of 32 authors, having that book chosen is crazy. And I promise I did not cheat. It truly is what came up when I drew the author's name and when I spun the wheel. I'm not complaining though. The other interesting thing that I realized as I was reading the book is when I spun the wheel to get this book, the wheel was green, which is very similar to the ping pong game I played in my last video, where anytime I threw the green ball, it went right into the cup. So maybe green is a lucky color for me in reading. we'll have to look into that further. All right, but first we have to go ahead and choose our next package and find out who the next author we are going to be reading from is. So here we go. I will take any author basically. I'm just hoping not to have a 600, 700 page book. All right, I'm going with this one. It's purple. It's number 21. Not that that means anything, but let's go ahead and see what author we are going to get. Here we go. All right, so here is the paper. All right, and here is the author's name. All right, and it is Sariah Wilson. So she is a romance author. And I think she also does some fantasies as well. So yeah, she's mainly a contemporary romance author, though more recently she's been kind of moving into the romantasy books. So I can't wait to see what book I am reading by her. The book I've read previously by her is Cinder Nanny, which I definitely really enjoyed. I read it a couple of years ago and I found it was just a fun contemporary romance book. So I'm looking forward to trying another book out with her. So let me put together the spinning wheel and then we will bring that up and see what our next book is. And the longest book that will be on the spinning wheel is 524 pages and it is called A Tribute of Fire. So that's the one I wouldn't mind avoiding. All right, so here is the Sariah Wilson wheel. The colors that the spin the wheel application gave me were yellows, blacks, and grays. So it looks like a little bumblebee. Not really going along with the romantic theme, but we're just going to go whichever default the application gives. So that is this wheel's color scheme. So there are a lot more books on this wheel than there were on Abigail Owen's wheel. So we're going to have a lot of potential. So let's go ahead and spin the wheel and see what book we're going to be reading. All right, here we go. I am excited, and it's going to be The Chemistry of Love. Let me make sure I can actually get this book, and if I can, I will let you know what it's about. So, The Chemistry of Love was published in 2023, so definitely not out of print at this moment, so available to obtain. And it's only about 350 pages long, and it's a contemporary romance, so hopefully it won't be a book that takes too long to read. It is a fake dating trope, which is not typically one of my favorite tropes to read. But we're gonna give it a shot. Like I said before, I enjoyed her other book, The Cinder Nanny, so I'm having high hopes for this one as well. So this book follows Anna, who's this very brilliant cosmetic chemist, and the man of her dreams happens to be Craig, who's her boss. Now, Craig's half brother, Marco, is also the CEO of the company. And Marco and Anna both know that Craig has a jealous streak in that he wants anything that Marco has. So Craig's a very competitive guy. And if Marco has something, then Craig wants it as well. So that is where the fake dating comes in. So Anna and Marco decide to fake date in the hopes that Craig gets jealous enough to sweep Anna away and kind of give her her happily ever after. Only as Anna and Marco go on date after fake date, Anna starts to realize that there is more to Marco than meets the eye. And if Anna and Marco are really falling in love, who are they to argue with science? So that is kind of the synopsis of the book. Again, it is fake dating. We'll see how it goes. We've gone from enemies to lovers, which is my favorite trope, to fake dating, which is definitely not one of the top tropes I enjoy reading, but I'm willing to give it a shot because I know I have enjoyed a prior book by this author. So we're going to try this one and see if I enjoy it just as much. So like I said, it's past midnight here, so I'll probably talk to you guys tomorrow once I get halfway through the book. It's what, 350 pages, so around page 175. Like, again, it's a contemporary romance, so hopefully it'll be a quick read. So I'll meet you guys back here tomorrow, and I'll let you know how this fake dating trope is going at that time. So I'll see you guys then. All right, I am back, and I am halfway through The Chemistry of Love by Sariah Wilson. First off, I love this cover. I love the color. I love the cover because of all the different colors it has on it. And the colors of the lipstick are actually very involved in the plot because the female main character is a cosmetic chemist. And one of the things she does is creates different color lipstick. So cover definitely matching the book. Second of all, I am absolutely enjoying this book. I'm having so much fun reading it. It's a rom-com contemporary romance, and I have really been enjoying both the female and male main characters. And I've been enjoying where the plot has been going and everything. Even though it is a fake dating plot, this one I'm not minding so much. So the female main character is Anna, and she's this cosmetic chemist who works at a big cosmetic company known as, or not known as, but named Minx. And there she kind of develops a lot of different cosmetic products from blush to lipstick to, eyeshadow. And she has been put in charge of developing a lot of the organic side of things. The first thing you come to realize in this book is how much of a jerk basically her boss is and how he kind of just berates her a ton and in front of all of her coworkers. So definitely don't like him. And then early on, you also meet Craig, who is the guy that she believes she's in love with, even though they've only really had a few interactions over the last like couple of years for no more than like 10 minutes at a time. But she is convinced that she has fallen in love with him. And when you first meet Craig, which happens in like the first 20 pages of the book, he also seems like kind of a jerk, and you're wondering why she even has feelings for him. Her best friend Catalina kind of feels the same way and is trying to push her to realize who Craig actually is, what his true personality is like, and that she is kind of just over what's it called? Oh, what's that word? She's kind of idolizing him basically and can't really see through to who he truly is. So then she ends up meeting Marco at the yearly company party. And Marco is Craig's half brother, but he's also the CEO of Meeks, while his half brother Craig is just the vice president. And Craig has been very competitive with Marco since childhood. And Marco comes to find out through a series of situations that Anna actually, has feelings for Craig. And for Marco's own reasons, he wants Craig to end up with Anna. So he proposes to Anna this whole fake dating scheme. And because it's really her only way to get to Craig, she ends up agreeing to it. But of course, Marco, our male main character, the male side of this fake dating relationship, is a great guy, which you learn early on. And as the synopsis says, she starts to have feelings for him, which you can kind of see why with how he presents himself in this book. Unlike some contemporary romances that kind of switch between female male characters, this book, so far at least, has been told entirely by Anna's viewpoint. And I am enjoying reading it from her viewpoint, and I'm really enjoying the character of Anna. She's obviously a scientist, very intelligent, likes things like Star Wars, The Lord of the Rings. She's also a little bit almost naive in the way that she handles men, I would say. She hasn't been on a lot of relationships, and she kind of idolizes what the perfect female male relationship is through her love of watching romantic comedy movies. So she has these like high ideas of what a relationship should be like and hasn't yet quite figured out, the real life relationships and who the good guys are and who the not so good guys are. I also like her best friend Catalina, who she met at her job at Minx Cosmetic, and I like how Catalina kind of realizes this about Anna and tries to get her to come around to see who, these men truly are. And I like how Catalina accepts Anna for who she is, which is more of an introvert. But she always invites her to things like her Dungeons and Dragons parties that she has weekly. Even though Anna never comes, she always puts out a invitation to Anna, which I think is very sweet. The other really random thing that I came across while reading this is that this book is set in LA in California. I'm from the East Coast. When we eat pizza, we fold it lengthwise and eat it that way. And apparently, when Marco did that, when they went out to have pizza, Anna did not realize that was even a thing. So now I'm wondering if that's just a East Coast thing or if Anna just has never seen that before, and it happens on the West Coast as well. I don't know. The only other place that I have eaten pizza a little bit differently is in Italy, because in Italy you order your own pizza. It's kind of a self-serving size of pizza, and it doesn't come cut at all. It's just basically a big circle. It's not cut into slices, so you kind of, cut it your own way with a fork and a knife. But so obviously there's no folding that pizza unless you cut it into slices, but that's not really the Italian way to do it, at least where I lived in Italy. But that pizza was so good, and I miss it so much. But anyway, that's kind of off the track. Like I said, I am absolutely loving this book. It's just a fun, bingeable book. It's entertaining to read. I love the main characters, and I can just see myself reading this on the beach, at the pool. It's a good kind of like summer bingeable, fun, doesn't take itself too seriously type of read. I'm excited to get to the second half of the book and see who Anna ends up with, Marco or Craig. I'm rooting for Marco. We'll see if I'm right. Well, I'll see if I'm right at the end. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you guys because you guys, have to read the book. I don't want to spoil it. And yeah, I'm just like rambling at this point. So I'll come check back in with you when I am halfway through this book. Is tea time now? It also looks like it's about to rain again. I feel like every time I record a video, like it's rain in the forecast. It's like entire week is rain. So we'll see if the storms show up. I'll let you know next time I talk to you guys. So I will see you guys back here at the fireplace once I have completed this book, and we'll go ahead and do our third and last book at that point. So I'll see you guys soon. Bye. All right, I am back because I have completed The Chemistry of Love by Sariah Wilson. And overall, I really ended up enjoying the story. I give it a 4.25 out of 5. The reason I did not give it a 4.5 out of 5 was basically because the first half of the second half of the book, there was just a little bit of redundancy for me, where the story didn't really feel like it was moving forward or going anywhere. You just had the little meetups between the main characters, and it just didn't really feel like it was moving forward in any direction, which kind of just slowed down the story a little bit for me. It was really only maybe like the first quarter of that second half of the story. But other than that, I really enjoyed the entire book. I felt like it was just a fun, lighthearted read, definitely a bingeable read. And I really enjoyed all the characters in the book, from the, two main characters that were having their fake romance to the main character's best friend. And I enjoyed kind of the antagonists of the stories as well. I thought the author did a good job getting through the personality she wanted those characters to have as well. Enjoying them does not mean I like them, because the way the character wrote them, you definitely disliked some of the other secondary characters, which is what it was meant to be. But she did a really good job of, like I said, getting their personalities across and knowing how those characters acted, which you don't always see with those secondary characters. So I felt like she kind of really fleshed them out, and you got to see who those characters truly are. So yeah, this is definitely just a lighthearted, fun romance that you could definitely binge read. And this book has definitely made me want to read more books by Sariah Wilson. I own a couple of others of hers. I believe I own The Paid's Bridesmaid and Roommate. And then I also bought her most recent romantasy, or her first romantasy rather, which I think is a tribute to Fire. And I definitely want to check out the romantasy and kind of compare it to her contemporary romance books. I know the two contemporary romances books that I've read by her so far are very lighthearted, fun reads. So I'm curious to see which direction she goes in her romantasy era. So that is it for The Chemistry of Love. Definitely, if you want a lighthearted, clean romance, there's nothing but kissing in this book. So it's definitely a clean romance that you just want to have fun reading in the summertime. This is definitely a book to check out. And I think some of her books are available on Kindle Unlimited. I'm not sure if this one is or not, but I know some of her other ones are. All right. So that is it for our second book. It is time to choose our author for our third and last book for this video. I cannot wait to see what we've got. We've had our fancy romantasy book. and we've had our contemporary romance book. And I promise you, I have other genres other than romance in here. Like I said, we do have historical fiction authors, we have science fiction authors, we have one horror author because that's not a genre I read a lot. We also have mystery thriller authors in here. So definitely a chance to get something other than romance. We'll see what happens. Here is our bag. As you can see, everything is in here. So let's go ahead and pull our last package. I cannot wait to see. I cannot wait to see what we get. All right, we're going with this one in my hand, and it's a yellow one. I think we had the yellow one first. I did throw the ones we already used back in there, because obviously there's more books by them. But this is package 22. Again, the numbers don't really mean anything. I don't know why I'm showing you, but just so you know. Can't remember if we got 22 the first time. I guess we'll find out. All right, here we go. All right, here's the author. I think that is Susanna Kearsley. So not the package we got the first time. So she is a historical fiction writer whose books have romance in them as well. They're not like historical romances. They're definitely like historical fiction with a leaning towards the romance genre as well. I've actually read quite a few books by her, and I've enjoyed every single one. Most of the ones I've read by her are set in the United Kingdom. They're kind of fantastical historical fiction books, some of them, where kind of like the Outlander, where a character from modern times kind of finds their way back into historical times. Um, and I just really enjoy her writing, and I feel like she really brings the characters and the atmosphere to life. The ones I've read from her so far have been Mariana, The Winter Sea, and The Firebird, which are a series, and then A Desperate Fortune. Her books are around 300 to 400 pages long. I already read the 500-page book, so we won't be getting that. But let's get our wheel ready, and we'll see what book we're going to be reading by her. There are 10 books that the wheel will be choosing from, so let's pull it up. All right, so here's the color scheme. It gave us this purple-green color scheme, which is definitely a interesting color scheme to have. But these are the 10 books on here that we could be reading from. So let's go ahead and spin the wheel and see what book we're going to read for the last book for this video. I cannot wait. Here we go. All right, that was some sound. I muted the wheel because the sound was, I don't know what was going on with it. But anyway, we got Bellewether. I have no idea what this book is about. I think it's one of her older books though. So let me take a look at it. First, make sure that it is available, and then what it is actually about. So give me a second. Okay, first of all, I was wrong. It was not one of her first books. It's a more recent book that was published back in 2018. All right, I have the synopsis here. This is obviously a historical fiction book that has romance involved as well as most of her books do, like I said. So there's kind of two timelines in this book. So the first timeline is back in 1759 when the world is at war, pulling the North American colonies of Britain and France into conflict. When French officers are captured, they are brought to Long Island to be billeted in private homes on their parole of honor. And one of the families that is upended by this is the Wilde family. And Lydia Wilde has been trying to keep the peace in her fractured family following her mother's death, and she really doesn't have the time or kindness to spare for these unwanted French prisoners, capturees. And obviously the French capturees, including French Canadian Lieutenant Jean Philippe de Sabran, he has little desire to be there. But by the war's end, both John Felipe and Lydia will learn love, honor, and duty can form tangled bonds that are not broken easily. This doomed romance ends up becoming a local legend in the area that is told and retold throughout all the years. And then when conflict of a different kind brings Charlie Van Hoek to Long Island to be the new curator of the Wilde House Museum. Charlie though, doesn't really believe in ghosts. But as she starts to delve into the history of Lydia and her French officer, it becomes clear that the Wild House holds more than just secrets. And Charlie discovers the legend might not have been telling the whole story or the whole truth. So, this book has a little bit about everything in it. We have our doom romance, we have, our historical fiction, and we have a mystery going on that Charlie in the present day has to resolve. So, sounds like it could be a interesting book. It's a little over 400 pages. So I am going to get to the 200 pages mark before I talk to you. It's already like, what time is it? It's already like 8 o'clock at night here. So I'll probably get back to you tomorrow and let you know the first half of the book. And then hopefully I'll finish the book by tomorrow evening as well and can let you know the rest of it. I'm excited about this. Like I said before, I do really enjoy her books and I enjoy her world building and her character building. And her stories are always very engaging, at least the four that I've read by her. This is the first one I've read set in the US, so I'm interested to see how this one is. And I'll let you know tomorrow when I'm halfway through the story. So I'll meet you back here by our lovely fireplace tomorrow, and I'll see you guys soon. All right, I am back, and it's the next day. It's late in the evening on the next day. It's like 6 or 6:30 at night, but I finally made it halfway through Bellewether by Susanna Kearsley. There are several reasons it has taken me this long to get halfway through. The first is I had to run some errands today, including going to the grocery store where I found raspberries for buy one, get one free. I was super excited about that because raspberries are one of my favorite fruits to eat. So that kind of made my day. And then the other reason is while I love Susanna Kearsley's books, I loved every one I've read by her, they are not a bingeable book. They are not fast paced. There's not a lot of action going on. They are very detailed oriented, very atmospheric, and it's important to kind of make sure you're really paying attention so that you don't miss anything. And that makes for a little bit of a slower read than like my romance book earlier on, as well as the romantasy, which I'm fine with, but that's why it's taken me a while to get to the halfway point. Now, that being said, I'm still really enjoying this book. So, this book is set across two timelines. The first timeline is our modern day timeline where we're following Charlie, who's a curator at a museum that's going to be open called the Wild Museum, which is set in the old home of Benjamin Wild, who was famous for his part in the Independence War. And then the historical part of the story takes place back in the early 18th century during the 7-Year War. And it follows two characters from that timeline. The first is Lydia Wild, who is the sister of Benjamin Wild and is living in the house where the museum is going to be. And it follows her story as well as John Philippe's story, who is a French officer who gets captured by the British during the 7-Year War. And he, as a prisoner, is housed with the Wild family as a parole prisoner, is what they call them. So he has to stay with the Wild family, but he has a little bit more freedom to kind of walk around the area. He just has to stay within a mile of the house. The reason that these three characters were chosen to be followed in the story, we find out in the very first chapter when Charlie learns of a ghost that might be living in the Wild House and in its land. And the story is told to her by Frank Wild, who is a descendant of the Wild family. And he tells her the story of Lydia and John Felipe, who are basically kind of fall in love. And one night they are trying to kind of run away together so that they can get married, live together. And the story is that John Felipe ends up getting killed by Lydia's older brother, not Benjamin, different older brother. And John Felipe's ghost now haunts the land with a lantern as if he still wants to lead Lydia to the water, to the boat, to run away. So that is the ghost story. We don't know if it's true or not. But that is why we are following Lydia and John Felipe's point of view in the past to see what truly did happen back then as Charlie in the modern day times tries to piece things together herself. So that's kind of what the story is about. So far, it's been a wonderful read. The author really does a good job with her descriptions and how she is able to kind of distinguish the modern timeline from the past timeline. When I'm reading in the modern timeline, I would know I was there, whether the chapter was called Charlie or not. And same with the 18th century timeline. I would know I was in the 18th century just based on the descriptions, how the author is writing, whether I had the characters in the title or not. I also feel the author does a really good job of building these characters up, and you start learning more and more about them as you read through. Charlie has a lot of family baggage from her past. She gets along with her parents really well, her brother, but things have happened that make her extended family, who happen to live where Charlie currently lives, they kind of disown Charlie's father and therefore Charlie as well. So there's that little conflict going on. Charlie also recently lost her brother and is living with her niece, who was her brother's daughter, and kind of helping each other get through that grief as well. And then Charlie's current boyfriend, again, kind of like in the other story, this one's also a jerk. And Charlie has not quite figured that out. At least in the beginning of the story, she has not figured that out. So I'm hoping by the end of the story, she comes to that realization, because there's definitely some other potentials in this book that would make for a better boyfriend than her current one. So that's kind of what Charlie is dealing with, as well as being the curator for this museum that they're trying to get up and running. Of course, she has like issues with some of the members on the museum board, as always happens in these types of stories. So I'm really enjoying learning kind of about her history, her past, as she also tries to figure out what happened with Lydia and John Felipe. And then in the past time with Lydia and John Felipe, Lydia has issues with the French because they killed basically her fiance. But then she starts kind of developing feelings for this officer that has been captured and is now staying in their house as a parolee prisoner. And then John Felipe doesn't speak any English at the moment. He only speaks French, and he was captured with a fellow officer who he really dislikes, and he's kind of having to come to terms with that, as well as not really enjoying being a prisoner, where they're not supposed to be allowed to do anything. They can't do any labor. That was really put in place to protect the prisoners, but he's also not one to sit around when he sees a family kind of struggling. So the three main characters, I honestly feel like I know pretty well, and I'm just enjoying following their story and kind of seeing where it's going and where it's going to end up. Like I said, I love Susanna Kearsley books. They are always just so well written. They make you feel like you are in the story yourself and that you know all the characters personally. And her stories are always just interesting, the ones that she comes up with. There's always multiple things going on, multiple plot points, as well as some kind of magical realism going on, as well as this story has with this ghost story. So that it's just started pouring again. Every evening around this time, we just have this major like rainstorm, thunderstorm, lightning storm. And I don't know why. I have not had a summer like this yet. I am quite I don't honestly mind it too much, but it's kind of crazy how often this is occurring. Anyway, that is where we are in the story right now. I am going to finish it up hopefully by tomorrow, because I want to get this edited so I can post it on Friday, and also get started on my Bookish vacation game. So I think I can get it done by tomorrow. I am halfway through. I have like 3 or 4 hours tonight to read it, and then I can finish it up tomorrow morning, hopefully. So I'll meet you guys back here at the fireplace once I finish this book, and that will conclude this video. And I don't know why, I feel like I'm concluding this video right now, so never mind. We are done here for now. I'll meet you back here at the fireplace tomorrow for the conclusion of this video, and I will see you guys here very soon. I am back for the end of this video because I have completed Bellewether by Susanna Kearsley. And she's done it again. She's definitely going to remain one of my favorite authors, especially of the historical fiction genre. I absolutely adored this book from beginning until end. I don't know what it is about her writing, but even though the story itself is a very kind of slow burn, slow paced plot, she just keeps you engaged throughout it all. I think it's because of how well she develops her characters and not just her main characters. Her side characters are very well developed also. And you almost feel like know them as well, almost as much as you know her main characters in this story. She also manages to tie up all her plot lines right at the end in a way that you never really thought was coming, but also once you get there, it's not really surprising either. So somehow she manages to make it not a surprise, but you also don't always see the little twist that she makes right at the end of her stories. And every character seems to have a purpose in her stories that you will not guess until she kind of lays it out for you at the end. And they're fun little twists and fun little connections that she makes between characters that just kind of really bring the story together. This story also kind of reminds you that we don't always know what happened in the past because when the stories get told down over time, things get convoluted and um the research that we do, the sources that we have, we're interpreting them based on our own knowledge and not, the knowledge back in time. So we can't always be certain that what we think this thing means is actually what it means. And she really brings that to life in this story especially with the way that she writes it, where in the current timeline with Charlie, you are trying to figure out what happened between Lydia and Jean Pierre just based on the stories that have gone passed down, the artifacts that they have found in the house and, in other museums. And at the same time, she's trying to figure this out. You're actually living it with John Felipe and Lydia in their chapters. And it's kind of interesting to see how certain things can get twisted between the past and, the present time. Now, that being said, this story does deal with a lot of harder topics, but important topics. Being set back in the early 18th century, it's a time period that not a lot of historical fiction books are set in that 7-year war period. I don't know if I said it earlier, but that 7-year war is not something that we really went into in depth, at least for me when I was growing up in my history classes. It was something that was mentioned, but not something that we like dove into, like the Revolutionary War, the Civil War. So it was interesting to read a book that was set in that time period and kind of learn a little bit more about what was going on at that time. Some of the topics that she dealt with in this, that were obviously difficult topics to write about, were slavery. She also dealt with how the indigenous people were treated back in that early 18th century as well as in modern times. And then she also kind of delved into the prisoner parole program that was going on at that time period as well. The author, Susanna Kearsley, is also very well known for how much research she puts into this book. So she not only used books to research, she also kind of interviewed people who were experts on this kind of time period to try to make her books as accurate as she could. And she obviously had those people kind of read over those parts as well and trying to present, what truly could have happened back then as accurately and genuinely, I guess, as possible in her stories. For those who are interested in delving into the historical fiction genre but haven't quite got there yet, I feel like Susanna Kearsley's books are a good jump into that place. Because the way she writes it, they're not like, it's hard to describe unless you've read like full on historical fiction books and compare them with hers. Hers are definitely historical fiction books but there's something about them that makes it easier to kind of comprehend and to read, and it keeps you engaged a little bit more than some of the more dense, more in-depth historical fiction books do. I think it's because she's doesn't focus on the full history as much. She more focuses on the characters. She just takes this these characters that she centers her whole story around, and then she kind of builds the rest of the world off of them, so you only really know what's happening through the characters versus with some historical fiction books where you get like everything thrown at you in like big lumps all at once. I feel like she's a little bit more approachable from a historical fiction standpoint than some other authors may be, and she's kind of like a good introduction to see if this is a genre that you may like. Um, all right. But that's all I got. I definitely an author I highly recommend for historical fiction reading. But that brings us to the end of this video, our author backlist backlog video, and I absolutely love doing this video. I don't know, it was just so much fun to find authors that I've read a book by before and then to just randomly choose another one to read from them. And I think we had a good well-rounded book list off of this with our romantasy that we started off with, and then moving on to a contemporary rom-com, and then finishing up with a historical fiction book that had a twist of romance, a twist of mystery in it. Definitely a video I plan to bring back in the future, as I have 32 authors in this bag that represent, every single genre. So definitely something you'll probably see again in the future by me. Now I'm going to be moving on straight from this video to next week's video, which is going to be our Bookish vacation game that I last played in March. I'm super excited about that. I am finishing up getting all the things ready to be able to play with it. So I'm hoping that I can start this tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday. And, you know, get to see where we're going to be traveling on for this summer vacation, Bookish vacation game. So that will come out next week. And then I will have a update for my reading journal the following week, where we'll kind of go over the books I read from April to June, and we'll kind of see where we are on my yearly challenges, and I'll give you quick little reviews on all the books that I've read that haven't been part of any of these reading vlog videos. All right, so I think that's it for now. For once, it's actually not storming outside. There's actually sun, which is amazing because it's been a while since it's been this late in the evening and not raining. So that was a nice change for today. All right, so thank you so much for joining me for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. If you want to see future videos by me, including the Bookish video game, oh my gosh, the Bookish reading game coming out next week, please hit that subscribe button. And if you want to let me know you've watched this video all the way through, let's leave a emoji of a boat, a ship, an anchor, water, any of those, because ships and water played a relatively big part in that last book I read, Bellewether. All right. Thank you once again for joining me for this video, and I'll see you guys again next week. Take care. Bye.